The Force is old and full of shadows.
The cart moves at the pace of ceremony. The Geonosians designed it that way. The repulsor lift slow enough to build dread in the prisoner, fast enough that the tunnel feels like a closing throat. The air in the passage is iron and heat, and the faint ammonia trace of something ancient and carnivorous ahead. The crowd noise arrives before the light does. Thousands of voices building from somewhere the tunnel hasn't reached yet, a rising, chittering sound. Not individual notes, but a collective frequency. The acoustic signature of a species that treats execution as entertainment and has refined it across centuries into something approaching art. Padmé Amidala watches the tunnel mouth. Her hands are steady. She has been a senator since she was 14 and a rebel long before that, and whatever fear she carries right now lives in a room she has locked and will not open in front of an audience. Especially this audience. The binders at her wrists are Durasteel, standard Geonosian issue, and she is testing them with the methodical patience of a woman who has been in worse rooms and walked out of all of them. Obi-Wan Kenobi breathes steadily beside Anakin. His eyes move, over the flanking guards, the cart's rate of acceleration, the gradient of light brightening ahead. He is not afraid. Obi-Wan Kenobi is rarely afraid and almost never shows it when he is. He is cataloging, the way he always catalogs, and there is a certain comfort in that, the way there is comfort in any familiar thing when the world has gone completely wrong. And Anakin Skywalker is 19 years old and terrified. Not visibly. He would sooner die than let them see it. Which is fitting, because he fully believes he is about to die. That specific certainty has stripped every performance mechanism he owns down to bare wire. He watches the tunnel wall slide past. He thinks about his mother. He thinks about Padmé. He thinks that there are things he has never said, and now there is no longer any time, and this thought has taken up every available surface in his skull. And he cannot move it, and he cannot speak around it, and the gates are still closed, but the light is building, and he is running out of seconds. He does not know that grief is the last thing he will ever feel as himself. Padmé turns toward him. Anakin, her voice is low, under the noise. I'm not afraid to die. I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life. He looks at her. What are you talking about? She leans closer, and when she speaks again, it is not a confession. It is a fact, stated with the same precise economy she uses on the Senate floor, as though the only alternative to saying it clearly is not saying it at all, and that alternative has ceased to be acceptable. I truly, deeply love you, and before we die I want you to know. She leans toward him. He leans toward her. The tunnel mouth opens. What happens next does not happen to Anakin Skywalker. The last thing Darth Vader experiences is cold. The reactor shaft of the Death Star 2, 40 meters of open air below him, the shaft still humming with the energy of what it had just swallowed, his master gone, fallen, destroyed in the dark below. His son's voice, somewhere above the ringing in his ears. I won't leave you. The Force opens outward in the final second. Not away. In. Like something that has been holding its breath for 23 years finally. Completely. Letting go. Then, heat. Actual heat on actual skin. Sunlight registering as a specific textured human thing. A woman's voice. Words that have no right to exist in any moment he has any business inhabiting. His eyes are open. He does not remember opening them. His hands. He looks down with the instinct of a man who has learned not to trust what he perceives, and he counts. 5 fingers. 5 fingers. 2 wrists with unburned skin and no interface ports, and no suit seams, and no constant mechanical rhythm pressing at his sternum, and nothing. Nothing. Between him and the fact of breathing. Real air through a real throat into lungs that have not needed a machine to function in over 2 decades. The Force hits him immediately after. Like a wave breaking against a hull that isn't there anymore, full and uncompressed and vast. The full unmediated roar of 20,000 midi-chlorians per cell with no damaged tissue anywhere to muffle it, and for one fraction of a second, the flood threatens to overwhelm every other signal in his nervous system. He grips it. Consciously, precisely, the way he once gripped a landing strut above a lava river and refused to fall. He shapes it into something he can use. The world resolves. Geonosian's son. Execution cart, the specific weight of durasteel binders at his pulse point. Padm's shoulder against his. Obi-Wan's steady breathing on the other side, cataloging, always cataloging. He scans. 3 beast gates ahead, north, west, east, the execution posts in their triangle formation at center floor. Spectator tiers packed full, the crowd noise now deafening and climbing. The northeast viewing box 15 meters above floor level, elevated stone balcony, and in it, the white hair, the perfect posture, the curved hilt visible at the hip. Count Dooku, watching with the expression of a man who has seen this performance before and expects it to proceed exactly as written. He does not know the script has been rewritten. Beyond Geonosis, far away across the dark, on Coruscant, in an armchair behind a desk in the building at the center of the Republic, a cold, surgical nothing. A dimensional pocket with a specific shape, not darkness. Darkness is perceivable. This is the absence of something, carved into exact dimensions, maintained with the precision of a mechanism that has been running for 30 years without interruption. He has spent 23 years submerged in this shape. He knows every contour of it, the way a man knows a scar he has stopped looking at. Palpatine, sitting at his desk, already calculating the emergency powers, already shaping the story Geonosis will become, not knowing that it is being looked at from the wrong direction. Anakin notes the bearing, files it, closes the door. In the clone barracks on 300 ships, hundreds of thousands of men carry a piece of circuitry at the base of their skulls that will one day make them turn on their Jedi generals and murder them where they stand. They do not know it is there. They are, right now, capable of being saved. Every one of them. The war has not begun. Dooku is 40 meters northeast and has not yet boarded his solar sailor. The Senate does not yet know what is coming. This is the most leverage he will ever have. In either life. He turns toward Padmé. She is 24 years old. She is watching him with an expression he has carried in his memory for 23 years, every iteration of it, every age. Finally motionless in the version that came last. She died 3 years from today in another life he lived completely and could not survive. She is breathing right now. Her shoulder is warm against his. She said, "I love you" 30 seconds ago, and the grief that moves through him when he processes it is a physical force, something with mass. Something that hits like the moment the suit was sealed for the first time, and the breathing started, and he understood that this was permanent. He closes around it. Later, not now. There is no now for grief. Grief is for people who have already secured the situation, and the situation is not secured, and everything, every life between this moment and the Republic she will not live to see fall. Depends on the next 30 seconds and the 30,000 after them. The gates are opening. I love you. Quiet, almost inaudible under the roar of the crowd, the tone of a man stating confirmed coordinates, not confessing anything. But we're not going to die today. Stay close to me, and don't be afraid of what you're about to see. She searches his face. Something is different. The words are almost the same words. The voice is not. She is too precise an observer to miss it, and too honest with herself to decide she imagined it. Anakin, the beasts first. Then Dooku. Then something much more important. He holds her eyes. Trust me. The gates reach full open. Light floods the tunnel white and absolute, and the noise of the crowd breaks over them like a wave. And the sand of the Petranaki arena stretches ahead in every direction under the brutal Geonosian sun. The difference between the boy I was and the man I am, the boy saw this as his death. I see it as the beginning of a long day's work. The sand comes up bright in the afternoon sun, reddish-brown, packed hard by years of use. 100 meters of it ringed by tiers of stone, holding thousands of Geonosians in a state of collective anticipation. The noise has a physical dimension, something felt in the chest before the ear processes it, a chittering wave that compounds with every second the cart is visible. 3 stone pillars rise from the floor in a rough triangle, iron shackle chains at the apex of each. Designed for beings of standard humanoid dimension. Designed, also, to hold. Anakin notes all of this in under a half-second. He notes the northeast box 15 meters up, where Dooku has settled back into his chair with the comfort of a man expecting a familiar outcome. He notes Padmé on the right post already working the binder with her fingertips, systematic and quiet. He notes Obi-Wan on the center post, eyes moving, cataloging. Then the northwest gate opens. The reek comes through at full charge. The crowd surges to its feet. 2,000 Geonosians tracking the animal's trajectory, and then the trajectory of the 19-year-old standing between the entry tunnel and the execution posts. The mathematics are straightforward, and the outcome is not in question. This is the part where mass meets momentum meets the specific smallness of a human body in the open, and the crowd knows the arithmetic by heart. Anakin walks toward the charge. Not running, not retreating, walking, a pace that has no urgency in it at all, the pace of a man with somewhere to be and an obstacle between him and there. The crowd noise shifts quality. The chitter stumbles. The arithmetic is not resolving correctly. At 10 meters he raises both hands. Not dramatically. Not the extended theatrical gesture of a man performing confidence. The way a technician makes a calibration, a precise, minimal elevation, hands at sternum height, focus narrow and complete. He sends a targeted pulse into the neural cluster at the base of the reek's skull, directly behind the ears. The specific knot of tissue where the animal's aggression conditioning interfaces with its central nervous system. Not a blow, a spike. The reek's charge stops, not slows, stops mid-stride, 2 tons of armored muscle dropping its front hooves into the sand, with an impact that sends vibration through the entire arena floor, the momentum simply interrupted at its origin. The animal stands there, sides heaving, 3 horns pointing at the boy who is already walking the last 10 meters toward its flank. He mounts it in one motion. His left hand closes on the nose chain, still attached from the handling harness, dragging in the sand, and the reek's head moves where his hand directs it. He turns the animal to face the center of the arena with the same unhurried economy he has brought to every action since the gates opened. In the northeast box, Count Dooku has stopped moving. 1. The Nexu reached Padmé's post before the reek gate opened. She had climbed above it, made it to the apex of the pillar with the practiced efficiency of someone who has performed worse physical acts in worse situations. But it cost her. The claw wound across her back is real and bleeding, and she has categorized it as something to address after the more immediate variable resolves. She holds herself at the top of the post and watches the Nexu circle below with the specific focus of someone converting fear into information. Anakin comes from behind. The animal's 4 eyes provide exceptional coverage across most angles. The exception is a narrow cone at shoulder height directly behind it, a dead zone where neither eye cluster has full input. A gap in the design that the Nexu's prey never survived long enough to exploit. He comes in through that cone, already off the reek and low, before the animal's lateral awareness registers anything. He drives a force field into the Nexu's chest. Not lethal. A targeted mass at the right angle, enough to send the animal tumbling across the sand in a rolling white shape that bounces once on the arena floor, churns up a wave of red dust, and comes back upright with its jaw already working through the aggression cycle it was trained into. 4 eyes locking on the new threat. The circle interrupted, the pattern broken, the predator recalibrating. He is standing in front of Padmé's post before it finishes recalibrating. The Nexu charges. He catches its jaw in both hands. Force assisted at the joints, controlled, his fingers finding the neural ganglion at the base of the neck, the one the animal has never learned to protect because nothing has ever needed to touch it. He makes the choice quickly and without deliberation. There is no cruelty in it, and no hesitation, and no feeling about it one way or the other. The Nexu goes still. He looks up. Padmé is looking back from the top of the post, sand on his boots, blood on his hands, no lightsaber anywhere visible on his person. Her expression is doing several things at once, processing, revising, arriving at a question she does not yet have the shape of. "How did you down?" He offers his hand. "Stay behind me." She takes it. No argument. Her feet hit the sand and she looks at his face again, with the same expression she's going to keep returning to. The sense of something operating at a depth she cannot account for. 2. The Acklay was Obi-Wan's problem. He'd acquired a spear from a Geonosian guard, who briefly had it. Obi-Wan has always been resourceful in the specific way of someone who has spent decades making the available tools sufficient. He is using it well. The Acklay's 6 legs give it omnidirectional movement at speed, and its forelimbs are the primary killing mechanism, and Obi-Wan is doing what Obi-Wan does under pressure, surviving with remarkable economy while searching for an opening the situation has not yet provided. He is holding. The opening is not there. Anakin watches for 3 seconds. The Acklay's footwork runs a repeating cycle: left front, right mid, right front, stabilize, pivot, repeat. There is a fraction inside the pivot where the left front joint bears the full lateral load. The exoskeleton is thinnest there. The joint is loaded. He does not move toward the Acklay. He sends a force tremor into the sand beneath the left front leg point. Precise, targeted, not a tremor anyone in the stands will register as anything other than a shift in the arena floor, the kind of vibration that might be the crowd stamping, might be settling stone, might be nothing. The frequency is specific. The timing is the left front joint at full load, the exact instant the pivot commits weight. The joint buckles. Obi-Wan does not know what changed. He sees an opening where there was no opening, and he takes it, the body acting before the mind confirms, the spear finding the angle the creature has denied him for the last 40 seconds. The Acklay's forward momentum fails, the trajectory collapses, the creature comes down in a grinding exoskeletal impact that throws sand in every direction. A sound like a building deciding to stop being a building, and it does not rise. Obi-Wan stands in the settling dust, spear still extended. He looks at where the stumble came from, which is the sand, which offers no explanation. He looks at the Acklay, which is not moving. He looks across the arena floor. Anakin is already looking somewhere else. 3. Now the complicated work begins. The crowd goes quiet, not immediately. The silence moves through the tiers and sections, compound eyes processing the same information at slightly different speeds, until the arithmetic finally resolves into something that has no precedent. 2 beasts dead. One standing behind a 19-year-old at the center of the arena, with his arms at his sides and no blood on him, except what is not his. The Geonosian word for what they have just witnessed does not exist, which is why the silence replaces the word. In the northeast box, Count Dooku rises from his seat slowly. He has watched Petranaki executions fail before. Jedi survive on these grounds with some regularity, clumsy and desperate, buying time through luck and skill until reinforcements arrive, and the arena becomes a different kind of problem. Competence he has seen. What he is looking at now is something that has no category in his experience. A boy his master flagged as a long-term investment moving through a lethal problem with the practiced economy of someone who has already solved it once elsewhere and is now simply confirming the solution. The body says, 19, nothing else does. Obi-Wan crosses the arena floor. He picks his words carefully, the voice of a man whose framework for Anakin Skywalker has just been comprehensively revised. Anakin, that was efficient. His eyes are on the northeast box. The Jedi arrive in approximately 3 minutes. When they do, get Padmé to Master Windu. A beat. Where are you going? Dooku cannot leave Geonosis. He moves toward the service stairway before Obi-Wan can answer. 40 Geonosian guards converge on the arena floor. They are doing their jobs. The jobs were built on an assumption about what this situation would be, and the situation is no longer that, and they are soldiers recalibrating in real time. He does not fight through them. He displaces them. Force pushes calibrated to existing momentum. Each guard's trajectory redirected enough to clear the path without impact. A borrowed blade, lifted from a belt without the owner noticing for another 2 seconds, used to strip weapons cleanly from the 3 guards who read the angle correctly and positioned to intercept. No broken bones. These are soldiers following orders in a location they believed was controlled. They don't deserve to carry the cost of a Sith Lord's choices. 3 reach him physically. He disarms all 3 in under 4 seconds. He reaches the base of the stairway leading up toward the northeast box. He starts climbing. The service corridor is stone and shadow, functional, not ceremonial, raw, cut, ferric rock with lighting strips at ankle height. The floor worn smooth by decades of foot traffic between the northeast box and the private hangar beyond. The hangar holds a solar sailor with its navigation set for Coruscant. The Count had planned to be aboard it before the Jedi Rescue Force reached the arena floor. He did not plan for the arena to be empty before they arrived. Anakin steps into the corridor ahead of him. He doesn't call out. He doesn't position himself in any guard posture or adopt the attitude of confrontation. He simply stands at the corridor's midpoint and waits. And Dooku stops walking when he sees him, and for a moment the two of them exist in a stillness that the guards flanking the Count don't know how to categorize. Dooku regards the 19-year-old. Most impressive. His voice carries the register of a man who has watched a great many impressive things and been moved by almost none of them. But you're out of your depth, young Skywalker. You say that every time. A beat. Something moves through Dooku's composure, brief, involuntary, gone so fast that a lesser observer would have decided they imagined it. Anakin does not decide that. The Count's eyes settle on him with a quality that was not there a second ago. Not alarm, not quite, but the recalibration of a man who has just encountered a variable he cannot immediately classify. Anakin raises his left hand and sends 2 targeted force pulses into the guards' weapons simultaneously, shorting the primary systems, rendering them non-functional without damaging the guards' mobility. The Geonosian contingent behind Dooku reads the corridor, performs a collective calculation, and retreats. Dooku ignites his lightsaber. The crimson blade arrives with the specific sound it always makes, a lower register than a standard kyber crystal, the result of decades of dark side saturation working through the stone. The curved hilt settles into the Makashi salute, blade angled forward at Anakin's midline, the guard's stance low and open and deceptively relaxed. An invitation. The form requires the opponent to read the open posture as weakness and respond to it. That response is what it feeds on. Anakin ignites the blade he carried from the arena's edge, not his own. Functional, he holds it at his side with the tip pointed at the floor. He does not adopt a guard. You'll need more than an arena performance against Form 2. Anakin looks at him. Form 2. 2-hand grip when pressed. Riposte on the third exchange when the opponent overextends. Flowing step to redirect momentum. Angulation thrust as the finishing stroke when the opening presents. A pause. Sith lightning when the lightsaber approach is failing, typically after the second failed riposte. The corridor holds the silence for a moment. I've seen your full repertoire, Anakin says. I've faced it before. In a future you're currently working very hard to build. Dooku moves first. The flowing step, his preferred opening. A lateral repositioning that angles him to his opponent's midline and invites a forward commitment. It is elegant, and it has worked on opponents with considerably more experience than a 19-year-old Padawan in a borrowed blade. Anakin does not take the invitation. He stands still, 2 full seconds of non-response. The form is designed to redirect existing momentum, and there is no momentum to redirect. Dooku's footwork settles, he revises. A direct Makashi thrust, compact, precise, aimed at the shoulder to probe the defense's quality. Anakin parries with minimal blade movement. The deflection covers exactly the centimeters required, no more. The execution has no business existing in a 19-year-old body. It is the specific efficiency born not from training, but from having operated in a body that couldn't afford wasted motion for 2 decades. The conserved precision that Dooku recognizes as something earned at cost, rather than drilled in a temple hall. Second exchange. The riposte, perfectly timed at the exact moment of recovery from the first parry. The simultaneous parry and thrust that exploits the fraction of a second when an opponent's blade is returning to guard. Anakin's blade is already where it needs to be. The recovery never opened. The gap was anticipated and closed before it formed. Third exchange. The flowing step again, this time with a shift in Dooku's force presence. a subtle emission of menace, an old technique. The psychological broadcasting designed to trigger the anger response in a young fighter and make them commit forward. It has never failed him against a Padawan. Young fighters feel the weight of a master's intent and respond with aggression. The anger does not arrive. What comes through the Force instead is something Dooku has encountered in very few beings across 8 decades: stillness. Not suppression, genuine stillness. The emotions are present but unavailable, placed behind something with structure and architecture, a door that has no handle on his side. Dooku is trying to find the lever that doesn't exist anymore. He drops the psychological approach and drives directly into the form's finishing sequence, the angulation thrust. The geometrically unfavorable angle that forces an awkward defense and creates the opening the riposte requires. Anakin doesn't give him the angle. His footwork is wrong for a 19-year-old. Too precisely calibrated to what Form 2 will request next from a defender, which means he knows the catalog and has positioned against each entry before it arrives. Dooku increases pressure. Anakin doesn't increase pressure in return. He absorbs, neutrally, efficiently, and the Count finds himself spending energy against a surface that takes the expenditure and returns nothing. The Makashi economy requires the opponent to be the one tiring. The opponent is not tiring. He pivots to lightning. Earlier than he planned, he is aware that he has been rattled by something he cannot name. And the lightning is the correct response to a failing lightsaber approach, and the lightsaber approach is failing. Both hands. Full output. The corridor fills blue-white. Anakin reaches through the Force and seizes the energy's path, not attempting to hold it in his body, but redirecting the discharge channel itself, bending the lightning's course sharply downward into the corridor floor before it reaches him. The stone blackens in spreading arcs around his feet. The overspill crackles across the lower half of his body, locking his muscles for 2 seconds. And he does not move. He holds the path through the Force and routes the current into the earth until Dooku's output exhausts itself. The corridor goes dark again. Dooku has not been genuinely afraid in a very long time. He identifies the sensation now only by how unfamiliar it is. 3 Gemso power strokes. The form counter Makashi has the least answer for, heavy and rhythmic. Designed to break the conserved energy economy by forcing a defensive expenditure on every block. Dooku retreats 1 step, 2, his defense holding but costing, and on the 4th stroke, Anakin incorporates a wrist redirect he has no business knowing, a Makashi technique, the form's own geometry turned against its practitioner. Requiring precise knowledge of how Dooku's grip responds under lateral pressure, at that angle, at that tempo, in that specific moment of an overextended recovery. The curved hilt leaves the Count's hand. Anakin catches it with his left. Both blades cross at Dooku's throat, the borrowed blue, the captured red, and the Count's back meets the corridor wall. A long moment passes. "Finish it," Dooku says. The voice of a man who has decided that dignity requires he not appear to wait. "I'm not going to kill you, Dooku." Something crosses the Count's face. Not relief. Something more complicated than relief, requiring more intelligence to process. "Then you're a fool. I won't be paraded before the Senate." "You will." Anakin deactivates both blades, steps back. "Because I'm going to tell you something that changes your calculation entirely." He looks at Dooku the way a physician looks at a result. No heat in it. No satisfaction. Pure clinical delivery. "In approximately 3 years, Palpatine will order me to execute you aboard a separatist warship. You'll be on your knees. Defenseless, he'll call it justice. And I'll do it. Because I was desperate, and he had spent a decade shaping me into exactly what he needed for exactly that moment." Dooku says nothing. "You're not his partner." Anakin lets the words occupy the corridor. "You're his placeholder. He planned to replace you with me from the beginning. The war, the separatists, the Republic, all theater. You are a disposable actor who has not been told the play is already over. The silence after that is a different quality than the silence before it. You cannot know this." Quietly, The argument of a man checking whether a wall he suspects has failed will still hold weight. I do know it. And you know it too. Anakin holds the Count's eyes without blinking. You've always known it. That's what makes you dangerous to him. And to yourself. From somewhere down the corridor, through stone, the sound of Jedi converging. Testify. Give me the Kaminoan file. The chip authorization codes. Every communication you have had with your master under any name he used. I don't need your soul, Count. I need your evidence. Dooku looks at him. 80 years of intelligence examining a 19-year-old's face and finding behind it something that has no age he can determine. A long, assessing silence that is itself an answer forming. You have 30 seconds to decide which ending you want. Anakin's voice doesn't rise. The one where Palpatine uses you until the use is finished and then has you killed in a moment he designed years in advance. Or the one where you face Republic justice on your own terms and take him down with you. He waits. Choose another silence. Shorter this time. You have your father's arrogance, Dooku says finally. That's the Jinn in me. A beat. The arrogance I earned myself. The Count looks at him one final moment with the expression of a man revising a document he thought was already final. Then he extends his wrists. The hyperspace corridor streaks outside the viewport for 3 days, and Anakin spends most of them in the same chair by the same window watching nothing. Obi-Wan has been watching him since Geonosis. Not obviously, he learned subtlety decades before he could articulate why it mattered, but Anakin can feel it the way you feel a presence in a room before you see it. He knows Obi-Wan's attention, has known it since he was 9 years old, and it was the first consistent thing in his life. That quality hasn't changed. What's changed is what the attention is finding. He waits until the 3rd day. You're different, Obi-Wan says. No preamble. The observation of a man who has been building to it and decided the distance between them is costing more than the conversation will. I know. That wasn't a Padawan in that arena. Or in that corridor. A pause. That was something else. Anakin turns from the viewport. Obi-Wan is watching him with the specific quality he reserves for things he doesn't have a category for. Not suspicion, not alarm, but the open, careful attention of someone genuinely trying to understand rather than judge. I'll explain everything, Anakin says. But not here. Not yet. There's a sequence that needs to happen in the right order. Anakin, trust me one more time. Before I ask you to do something very hard. Obi-Wan is quiet for a long time. Outside, the hyperspace corridor burns. In the hold behind them, under Republic guard, Count Dooku sits in a containment cell with his wrists bound and the expression of a man revising everything he thought he understood about the shape of his life. All right, Obi-Wan says finally. It is the most valuable thing he has said in 3 days. Coruscant, night, Padmé opens the door and reads his face. She is precise enough to know in the first 2 seconds that whatever comes next is not small. She steps back. He enters. The door closes behind him. He does not sit. He stands in the center of her living space, with the city lights burning through the floor to ceiling windows at his back, and he tells her everything. Not around it. Directly, in the order that makes the architecture of it comprehensible. What he is, a mind that spent 23 years in a body that was not this one, wearing a suit that kept him alive the way a cage keeps something alive, in service to a man who needed him broken to be useful. The shift happened at the exact moment she spoke on the cart. He tells her this without explaining how it is possible, because he does not know how it is possible, and he will not offer her a false certainty in place of an honest gap. His life, the fall, and what caused it, and what it made of him. The suit, and the breathing, and the 2 decades of imperial darkness, the things he did under orders, and the things he did because he had stopped needing orders. He names them. He does not soften them. He did not come here to be forgiven, and he will not construct a version of his history that reaches for it. Then, her death. He tells her that too. You died in childbirth, he says. 3 years from now if nothing changes. There were 2 children, a boy and a girl. He holds her eyes. The boy was hidden on Tatooine. The girl went to Alderaan. They never knew each other growing up. They spent their lives in the shadow of an empire that neither of them built, and both of them bled to fight. Padmé sits down. The disbelief is already behind her. He watched it move across her face in the first minutes of the confession, and resolve into something harder and more honest. What arrives now is horror. Not the performance of it, but the actual thing, quiet and specific. The image of two children she has never met, growing up without parents, in a galaxy their father shaped into something designed to crush them. Her hands are still on her knees. Her face is still. She allows herself 30 seconds. He watches her hold it, the way Padmé Amidala holds impossible things. The way she has held them since she was 14, and the blockade arrived at Naboo's orbit. The grief moves through her like current through deep water, present, real, leaving no visible surface disturbance except the precise quality of her stillness. She doesn't look away from him. She doesn't close her eyes. She carries it in full view for 30 seconds, and then she breathes. And then she asks the only question that matters. When you say you failed me, how? He answers without pause. He has been carrying the specific answer for 23 years, and it does not require preparation. I chose fear over love every time they came into conflict. I chose power because I convinced myself it was the same thing as safety. I chose a man who never cared about either of us over the life we could have built, one wrong decision at a time, because I couldn't see past my own terror long enough to ask whether I was moving towards something or only running from it. She looks at him for a long moment. The man in front of me right now doesn't sound like someone who makes those choices. That's because I've already made them. A beat. I'm not going to make them again. The city spreads behind him. She studies his face with the expression she has been returning to since the execution cart. The sense of something operating at a depth she cannot fully reach. Something with age and weight that the body in front of her doesn't account for. A senator's training and a sharp mind, and the specific honesty of a woman who has spent her life calling things what they are. You said we were married, she says. Secretly. Yes, why secretly? Fear. And the belief that hiding you meant protecting you. Flat? Accurate? No self-pity in it. I was wrong about both. She is quiet for a moment. The city lights reflect off the windows at his back, and she looks at him through them, through the light, through everything he has just laid in front of her. If we do what you're describing, everything you're describing, there's no hiding at the other end of it. No, she holds his eyes. Then we don't need to hide now either. The encrypted frequency opens at midnight ship time. The 501st is 2 days out from Geonosis, running post-battle assessments, the organized exhaustion of a unit that has survived its first engagement and is now methodically counting what it cost. Captain Rex answers. Professional, guarded, his voice carries the contained caution of a man who is new to everything except discipline and has decided that discipline will have to serve until experience arrives. Captain Rex. Anakin's voice is even. There is a chip in your brain. In every clone's brain. You can't feel it. It has been there since you were grown on Kamino. It was designed to be activated by a single command. When that command is given, you will execute your Jedi commanders without hesitation, without thought, and without any ability to choose otherwise. You will not know it is happening until it is already done. The frequency holds silence. Sir, I know how it sounds. Get a brain scan from a medical officer you trust personally, outside standard channels. Tell me what you find. A pause. When Rex speaks again, the professionalism is still there, but underneath it, something is working. How do you know this? Because I watched it happen. The words carry no drama. They are simply the accurate statement of a fact. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. A longer silence. Not the silence of dismissal, the harder silence of a man checking a claim against everything he knows about himself, and finding that it does not break against any of it cleanly. Rex has an innate stubbornness about his own will, an identity that resists being told what it is from the outside. The thought of a device in his skull designed to make his will into someone else's instrument lands in him as something he recognizes as a violation before he can fully name it. I'll get the scan, Rex says. The frequency closes. Palpatine's office. Late enough that the Senate building has emptied down to night staff and guards. He expected Anakin 2 days ago. The boy always came. That was one of the reliable mechanics, the gravitational certainty of the relationship he had been constructing for years, slowly, with the patience that distinguishes genuine architects from people who simply want things. Praise, access, the manufactured intimacy of a mentor who sees what others miss. Anakin came because being seen had been the thing he wanted since Tatooine. The office provided it. The office would always provide it. The boy has not come. He sits in the dark for a long time before he closes his eyes. He reaches out through the Force, across the district, past the Senate buildings, toward the specific signature he has been tending, with the care of someone who understands that this particular instrument will one day be the most powerful tool ever placed in a single hand. He finds it. The signal is there, the enormous, raw, uncompressed Force presence that still registers as unlike anything else he has encountered in a living being. His composure slips. 1 second. Less than 1 second. He closes around it before it becomes anything visible, the control automatic after decades of practice, the mask settling back into place before there is anyone to see it displaced. The emotional turbulence he spent years cultivating, the fear, the anger, the desperate attachment he identified as the key and used accordingly, it is still present. He can feel the shape of it, the edges of everything he planted. But it is beneath something, an architecture of control that has no business existing in a 19-year-old body. The turbulence is still there, the way a river runs beneath ice, real, intact, and completely inaccessible from above. Something has been built over it that he did not build and does not recognize. It reads like experience. Old, specific, heavy experience earned at costs he cannot calculate from here. He sits very still for a long time. Reschedule tomorrow's meetings, he says to the guard at the door. He needs time to think. The rain on Kamino is not weather, it is condition. Permanent, total, the planet's entire relationship with the sky reduced to a single gray fact that has been true since before any living being arrived to observe it. Tipoca City rises from the ocean on stilts like something that refused to accept the available options, its white towers and connecting bridges catching the stormlight and holding it. They land in the private bay Obi-Wan used 3 weeks ago, on his first visit, when he came alone and was shown an army and still managed to miss the thing built into every soldier's brain. He hasn't forgiven himself for that yet. He won't for a long time. The team assembles in the bay before disembarking. Anakin looks at what he has put together and acknowledges privately that its existence is unlikely enough to qualify as something the Force engineered for the specific purpose of confusing everyone involved. Padmé, Senate inspection credentials, political authorization, and the specific legitimacy that makes Lama Su's options narrow. She stands with her travel coat still beaded with rain from the walkway, reviewing her documentation with the focus of someone who has run harder operations through worse opposition. Obi-Wan. Combat backup and institutional memory of the facility's layout. He has said very little about being brought back to Kamino this soon. What he said privately, and it was mostly questions about Anakin that Anakin answered with enough to keep him moving forward. Rex. Inside access, and something more personal than access. He confirmed the scan result 2 days ago, 3 words on an encrypted frequency, "You were right," and arrived at the bay 4 hours later in civilian clothes, with his armor packed in a case and an expression that has not fully settled since. And Dooku, wrists still bound, escorted by 2 Republic guards, looking at the rain on the viewport with the calm of a man who has made his calculation and is now executing it. Obi-Wan looks at him. Then, at Anakin. Bringing Dooku to Kamino is either the best idea you've ever had, or the one that gets us all killed. Both can be true. Rex is watching Dooku with the specific quality of a man doing an inventory. Not anger, something more deliberate than anger. You're the one who put the chips in. Dooku meets his eyes without flinching. I placed an order. I didn't know the full purpose of what I was ordering. Rex looks at Anakin. Is that true? Anakin considers. Does it matter? A pause. Rex looks back at Dooku, then away. Not really, no. They disembark into the rain. Lama Su cooperates. He does not do it willingly. He does it the way the Kaminoans do most things, through calculation. because the political weight Padmé carries makes non-cooperation more expensive than cooperation. And the Kaminoans have been running a detailed cost analysis on every choice they make since before the Republic learned to spell their planet's name. The main briefing hall is white and cold and designed for beings taller than any of them, except Lama Su himself, who moves through it with the unhurried precision of something that is never needed to rush. He reviews Padmé's credentials. He reviews the inspection mandate. He produces the relevant documentation with the professional courtesy of a man who intends to be scrupulously correct in everything he does and expects the same standard applied to everyone in his facility. Then, Anakin brings Dooku in. The guards position at the door. Dooku walks to the briefing table with his bound wrists held in front of him and sits without being asked, the way a man sits when he has decided that every gesture he makes from this point forward will be chosen rather than reactive. Lama Su looks at him, looks at Anakin, performs no visible emotional response. I'll need his formal identification confirmed before. He was Darth Tyrannus. Anakin says. He placed the original clone army order under that name. The authorization codes in your files will match his biometric signature. Run the comparison now. A pause. Lama Su runs it. The confirmation takes 11 seconds. He sets the datapad down. Dooku speaks without preamble. His voice carries the register of a man delivering testimony rather than confession, precise, documented. Stripped of everything that is not factually essential. The chip order was placed by him under the Tyrannus identity. The Kaminoan files show the authorization. The chips were specified as behavioral stabilizers with activation parameters, and those parameters were provided to him by his employer. His employer's name is Sheev Palpatine. His employer currently holds the office of Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. He says this the way he said everything in the Geonosis corridor, with the specific flatness of a man who has made his calculation and is now simply executing it. Lama Su is quiet for a long moment. You're telling us, he says finally, that the behavioral modification systems in our product were specified by an undisclosed third party without our knowledge of their full function. Padmé, without your full knowledge, yes, our product has been compromised. He says it the way a master engineer says it about a structure they built that was designed, from the first drawings, to fail on command. Not distress, not outrage. Something more precise and more cold than either, the professional recognition that something bearing the Kaminoan name was built to do something the Kaminoans did not authorize, did not know, and did not sign. It is the most useful thing Anakin has heard in 3 days. The volunteer is a trooper from Vanguard Company. He came forward when Rex explained what was needed, stood in front of Anakin for 40 seconds without speaking, and then said he'd do it. Nothing else. No elaboration. He sits in the medical chair in the facility's assessment bay with the stillness of someone who has decided to observe what happens to him without flinching from it. Dooku is positioned across the room under guard. He will deliver a partial activation stimulus, not Order 66, not the full command structure, just enough of the hierarchical override signal to demonstrate that the mechanism is real and functional. He will withdraw it on Anakin's instruction. Lama Su watches from the observation window. Padmé stands beside him with a recording device. Dooku speaks the partial trigger. For 3 seconds the trooper's face changes. It is not a dramatic change. It would be invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. But it is there, a quality that overlays his features, something mechanical and absolute settling over the individual expression, something that is not him using his face in the specific way that a puppet uses its mechanism. His eyes go to the blank, directed focus of a man who has received an instruction and has no access to the part of himself that would evaluate it. Then, Dooku says the withdrawal signal. The trooper blinks. The mechanical quality lifts. His own expression returns by increments, like a tide coming back in. He sits with it for a moment. I couldn't stop it, he says quietly. It wasn't like being held down. It was like... He stops, searches for the language, like being a passenger in my own body. I was still there. I could still see, but the controls weren't mine. Rex has been standing at the back of the room with his arms at his sides. Every single one of us, he says. He says it to no one in particular. He says it the way you say something that was always true and that you are only now able to name. Lama Su authorizes the surgical removal program within 2 hours of the demonstration. The decision has no visible emotional component. The Kaminoans' product has been compromised without their knowledge, which means the Kaminoans' reputation has been compromised without their knowledge, which means the Kaminoans will correct this with the same thoroughness they brought to building it. The logistical reality is what it is. Over 1 million clones in various stages of deployment and development, with hundreds of thousands more moving through the facility's growth pipeline. Full surgical removal will take months. They begin immediately with vanguard units, the 501st and its attached battalions, working through the ranks in order of deployment priority. Rex is first. He sits in the medical bay in the white light with the facility's lead surgeon standing behind him and Anakin standing at the foot of the bed, and he is very still throughout the procedure, which takes 11 minutes. The chip is small. The surgeon shows it to him afterward in a sealed specimen container, a piece of grown organic circuitry the size of a thumbnail, embedded in what was once the most intimate architecture of his will. Rex looks at it for a while. I expected to feel different, he says. Lighter, he sets the container down on the bed beside him. But you can't feel the absence of something you didn't know was there. Anakin looks at him. You'll feel it in about a year. How? Someone will give an order. And you'll notice you're still thinking. A pause. That's the difference. That's when you'll feel it. Rex considers this. Outside, the rain continues its permanent business against the facility walls. The ocean beneath them moves in long, slow, indifferent swells that have nothing to do with any of this. Is that how it worked? Rex says. In the world you come from. Yes, Rex nods once, the nod of a man filing something accurately. Down the corridor, the next trooper is already waiting in the surgical prep room, and the one after that, and the hundreds of thousands after that, scattered across a galaxy that does not yet know what was built into them and what is being quietly, precisely, irrevocably removed. Anakin stands in the medical bay and listens to the rain and lets it be enough for now. The council chamber sits at the peak of the temple's tallest spire, and the view from its curved windows is the entire city, every level of Coruscant spread below in an endless grid of light and architecture that extends to every horizon without interruption. Anakin knows this room. He has known it since he was 9 years old and stood in the center of it, small and certain, while 12 masters assessed whether he was worth the trouble. He knows it in other ways too. In another life he stood in this room on a night he doesn't allow himself to think about directly. Not here, not now, not in this body. He lets the memory exist at a distance and does not look at it. He arrives alone, civilian clothes, dark, no lightsaber visible. The corridor outside is empty, he told the temple guard he was expected, which is technically true, since the council has sent 4 summons across 2 weeks and each one has gone unanswered. He walks through the outer door, crosses the threshold, and stops in the center of the floor. He bows. The master form, not the Padawan bow, the full deep incline reserved for equals addressing equals, the one that requires the bowing party to be a master themselves or to have decided they are. The discrepancy moves around the room without anyone speaking it. Mace Windu sits in his chair with both hands flat on his armrests. He watches Anakin straighten with the expression of a man who has been cataloging anomalies for 2 weeks and has run out of patience with the process. Skywalker, steady, controlled the voice he uses when he needs to be heard clearly before anything escalates. You've ignored this council's summons for 2 weeks. I've been preventing a war. No apology in it. Not delivered with aggression either, with the simple factual tone of a man explaining why he chose one priority over another. I thought that took precedence. That is not your decision to make alone, with respect, Master Windu. Anakin looks at him directly. The Sith Lord who has been operating in the Chancellor's office for 20 years was my decision to make alone, because you didn't make it. The chamber holds that for a moment. He delivers the intelligence package without drama. Standing in the center of the room, no datapad in hand, reciting from memory the way a soldier recites an after-action report, in sequence with sources, with the documentation available for review on the terminal he accessed before entering. Palpatine's identity as Darth Sidious, Dooku's recorded testimony, authenticated against his biometric signature through the Kaminoan files. The authentication chain is intact. The testimony is corroborated at 3 separate points by communication records accessed through channels he does not elaborate on yet. The Clone Army's Sith origins, the Tyrannus authorization codes match to Dooku's confirmed identity, the Kaminoan documentation showing the behavioral modification system specifications, the chain of custody running from the Chancellor's proxy to the facility to the brain of every soldier currently serving in the Republic military. The inhibitor chips, the demonstration footage. He lets it play. The room watches a clone trooper's face change for 3 seconds and then come back to itself. He watches the council watch it. The grand plan, the manufactured separatist crisis, the engineered emergency powers legislation, the systematic cultivation of a path from elected chancellor to permanent executive authority. He outlines it with the specificity of someone who observed its execution from close range over a very long time. He does not tell them how he knows. Not yet. Yoda's eyes are closed. They have been closed since Anakin started speaking. When the footage ends and the terminal goes dark, the ancient Jedi Master sits in his chair with both hands on his cane and the expression of someone conducting a very careful internal accounting. Sense the truth of this. I do. He opens his eyes. They are not what they usually are, not the alert, probing attention he brings to most things, but something quieter and harder to look at. Shame, I feel. Long suspected something, we should have. Seen it, we did not. Mace's hands tighten on the armrests, not in anger, in the specific, controlled horror of a man whose entire vocation has been to guard against exactly this, and who is now sitting in a room where the evidence of his failure is playing on a screen. He does not argue with the footage. He cannot. Ki-Adi-Mundi leans forward. His voice is measured, careful, this intelligence. The specificity of it, the communication records, the Palpatine connection. How did you come by this? Anakin looks at him. I died fighting him. And I was sent back. The chamber goes absolutely still. Mace speaks first. That is not a surprise. Mace Windu has spent his life being the person in the room who asks the question that no one else will. Your Force signature has changed. He says it the way he would say anything he is certain of, not as an accusation, not as a question, but as the statement of an observed fact that requires explanation. There is something in it that isn't dark, but isn't clean either. It's layered in a way that has no framework in anything I've encountered. A pause. What are you? Anakin is quiet for a moment. I'm what you were afraid I'd become, he says. Minus the part where I fell. He delivers this without defensiveness, without aggression. The way you state a coordinate, because it is accurate, and accuracy is the only thing that serves anyone in this room. From the entrance behind him, a voice. What I feel from him is grief and determination. Obi-Wan has been standing at the chamber threshold since before Anakin entered, not summoned, present by his own choice, and something I can only describe as experience, the kind that belongs to someone much older. Mace looks at him. You vouch for him. It is not quite a question. Against anyone in this room. No hesitation. Yes, Anakin does not turn around. But something in his posture shifts, not visibly, nothing you could point to, the way a structure shifts when a load it has been carrying alone is shared for a moment. He carries 45 years of complicated love for the man at the door, and 23 years of grief for what happened between them, and the specific thing that having him in this room costs him is something he is not going to examine right now in front of 12 masters. He files it. Later. Not now. He turns back to the chamber. 3 things, he says. I need 3 things from this council. Mace's expression indicates he is already forming an objection to the framing. First, immediate authorization for Jedi to assist the Senate investigation into Palpatine. Full cooperation, on the record, under the Council's institutional endorsement. The Senate will move faster, with Jedi credibility attached to the evidence package. And speed matters because Palpatine has a response contingency for every scenario he's had time to anticipate. We have not given him time to anticipate this one. We need to act before he recovers it. He moves to the second before anyone can interrupt. Second, suspension of Council authority over the clone army pending completion of the chip removal operation. The clones are individuals whose autonomy has been systematically violated. They are not soldiers awaiting redeployment on this Council's schedule. They are people awaiting surgery on a timeline the Kaminoans are already executing. That operation runs under Senate oversight and my coordination, not the Order's command structure. The third he delivers more slowly. Not because it is harder to say, it is the clearest of the three, but because it is the one that will cost this room the most to accept. Third, a formal acknowledgement, on record, that your failure to detect Sidious was structural, not an intelligence lapse, not bad luck. A systemic failure in how this Order has chosen to assess and reassess threats it decided it already understood. That acknowledgement needs to exist so that whoever rebuilds what comes next does it with accurate information about how the previous version failed. Mace looks at him for a long moment. You don't ask for concessions. His voice is careful. Precise. You demand them. I'm offering you the chance to correct what was broken before it destroys everything you've built. Anakin holds his eyes. That's not a demand. It's a gift. You can decline it. But I'd like you to understand what you'd be declining. Silence moves through the chamber. The 12 masters sit with it. Yoda is the one who speaks. Humbled, we are. He taps his cane once against the floor, not in emphasis, in something that might be punctuation for a decision already made. Right. You are. On all three counts. His eyes move to Mace, then around the room. Begin the arrest operation. We must. Time we have wasted enough of already. Mace opens his hands on the armrests. Releases something. The chamber begins to move. The recording devices are small. 2 of them, approved by the Council, positioned on his person with the specific placement that maximizes audio capture of both sides of the room. He confirmed their function in the transport on the way over. He will confirm them again after he leaves. Padmé is in the Senate Rotunda right now, addressing an emergency session on what she is calling a matter of Republic security, which is accurate in the way that calling a collapsing building a structural concern is accurate. The 501st has been repositioning for 36 hours. Anakin walks into Palpatine's office and the warmth comes at him immediately, the full practiced warmth of a man who has been engineering this relationship for years and has no reason yet to believe the engineering has failed. The room is exactly as it always is. The curved desk, the windows with the Senate district spread below them. The red guard still at the door, standing the way objects stand. Palpatine rises from his chair. My boy. The voice is warm and concerned and specific in its warmth, not generic affection, but the manufactured intimacy of a mentor who has spent years learning the exact register that makes this particular person feel seen. I've been worried about you. The reports from Geonosis, extraordinary. And then you disappeared for 2 weeks, without a word. I had work to do. Yes, of course. He gestures to the chair across from his desk. Come, sit. There's a story I don't share with many people. Anakin sits. He watches Palpatine settle back into the posture of confidence, the unhurried recline of a man who believes he has all the time available. He watches the eyes doing something different from what the face is doing. The warmth is in the face. The eyes are running assessments. They have been since the moment Anakin walked through the door. He waits. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Palpatine's voice drops to the register he uses for private things, the manufactured intimacy increasing, pulling Anakin closer, into the circle of the shared secret, the knowledge that only the worthy are offered. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you, Anakin speaks. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying. The irony is, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. He could save others from death, but not himself. The office is absolutely still. Palpatine looks at him, not the warm look, not the assessing look, something behind both of them, something that has not needed to come to the surface in a very long time, because there has been no occasion for it. How do you know that story? Not a question. The flat statement of a man checking whether what he is experiencing is real. You told me once. Anakin holds his eyes. In another conversation. In what I suppose was another life. The warmth leaves the room. Not gradually, completely, the way a mask comes off rather than wears away. What is underneath it is not anger. Anger would be almost reassuring. What is underneath is something colder and more honest than Anakin has seen on this face in all the years he spent in its owner's orbit. The expression of a man who has stopped performing because the performance has been identified, and performance in front of someone who can identify it is only waste. Palpatine stands. You're not what you were, he says. No, someone has been speaking to you. Someone has filled your head with. No one filled my head with anything. The words are flat and certain, the words of someone who has rehearsed nothing, because nothing requires rehearsal when it is simply true. I filled it myself. 23 years of it. The Republic guards at the door register nothing. They are not watching this. They are positioned toward the corridor, which is where threats have always come from. Palpatine moves, not toward Anakin, a lateral adjustment, a half step that puts him closer to the desk while appearing to be nothing. I know that Padmé is going to be fine, Anakin says, tracking the movement without acknowledging it visibly. I know the war isn't going to happen. The chips are already being removed from the clones. The Kaminoans began the surgical program 8 days ago. Dooku's testimony is authenticated and on record. And I know, he pauses, that you're reaching toward that desk because the emergency alert is on the underside of the third drawer. Don't. Palpatine's hand stops. The silence that follows has a specific quality. It is the silence of someone performing a complete reassessment of every variable available. It is a very fast process. Palpatine's mind is not something that wastes time on the mechanics of disbelief when evidence contradicts expectation. He revises. He adapts. He calculates. What he is calculating right now is how this is possible, and whether it can be reversed, and what the available leverage points are from his current position, and whether the recording devices he suspects are present make any response inadmissible. Anakin lets him calculate. Then, I didn't come here to arrest you. He says it simply. That happens separately, and it will happen. But that isn't what this is. I came because you deserve to hear it from me directly, before everything else. He holds Palpatine's eyes across the desk. It's over. Everything you built over 50 years. The plan, the war, the path to Emperor, all of it. Over, Palpatine is very still. He is performing a specific kind of stillness, not the stillness of shock or defeat, but the coiled, deliberate stillness of a predator identifying what options remain. He has been in worse positions than this. He has survived worse reversals than this. He has survived 1,000 years of accumulated opposition through the simple discipline of never accepting that a situation cannot be reframed. He reframes. You love her. His voice has changed. Softer now. The concerned mentor again, reaching for the instrument he identified as the key to this particular lock a decade ago. And love is not something the Force sustains without cost. The visions come regardless of how careful you are. You know that. You felt it already. The fear that one day it will be. You tried that once, Anakin says. It worked. It doesn't work anymore. Palpatine looks at him. In the original life, this was the variable that changed everything. The fear for Padmé, the nightmares. The desperation that made a man choose a terrible thing because the alternative was losing what he could not survive losing. It was a precisely constructed trap, baited with the one thing Anakin could not afford to evaluate rationally, and it worked completely. The bait is still there. The fear is still there. He can feel the edges of it, the love that underlies it. The specific weight of someone who has already lost this once and has no category for losing it again. The instrument is intact, but the hand playing it is not available. Anakin stands. He crosses to the door and stops with his back to the room for a moment, and when he turns it is not to deliver anything that resembles a verdict or a threat. His voice is quiet, almost private. This is me telling you that I see you. He says it without drama. Not the Chancellor, not the mentor who saw something in a frightened boy that the Jedi missed, not the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. I see Sheev Palpatine, a man who chose power over everything and every person he encountered and called the choosing wisdom, who spent 50 years deciding other people's lives to serve a design he dressed up as destiny. He holds Palpatine's eyes for a long moment, and before everything that comes next, I want you to know, I pity you. He does not say it cruelly. He says it with the specific precision of a man who has thought about this for 23 years and found that pity is the accurate word. And accuracy is the only thing he came here to offer. The Senate is in session right now. Padmé is giving a speech. He opens the door. I'd recommend the holoscreen. He leaves. Palpatine stands in his office for a long moment. Then he walks to the window. Below, the Senate district glitters in the afternoon light, the building he has governed for 2 decades. The institution he has been systematically hollowing since before most of its members were born, the machine he built to become a different machine at the moment of his choosing. The streets are normal. The traffic moves. On the public holoscreen mounted to the Senate Tower's exterior facing, a speech is beginning. He can see it from here. Her face, her voice inaudible through the glass, but the image clear, Padmé Amidala at the center dais of the Senate Rotunda, surrounded by hovering Senate pods, speaking into a microphone with the specific posture she adopts when she has decided that precision matters more than delivery. The screen carries the documentation in panels beside her face. He can see the Kaminoan file headers from here. He can see the authentication codes. He stands at the window and watches the speech begin, and understands with the absolute clarity of someone who has survived this long by never lying to himself about his position, that this is the position he is currently in. The recording devices on Anakin's person are transmitting. He knew that, of course. He's known it since the first 30 seconds of the conversation. He stands at the window anyway. The Senate Rotunda holds 10,000 beings on a normal session day. The emergency convening has drawn more than that. Word traveled fast. The way it travels when senators understand that fast travel is the difference between being present at history and reading about it afterward. Every pod is occupied. The overhead lighting is at full capacity. The space is designed for spectacle, for the theater of governance, and right now it is serving that function with a precision that has nothing theatrical about it. Padmé stands at the central dais and delivers the speech the way she has delivered everything since she was 14 years old, with the specific authority of someone who has done the preparation and is now simply reporting the results. Her voice is even. Her documentation is in order. She has practiced this 3 times in the apartment with Anakin present, and each time she practiced it, she stripped another layer of performance from it. Because the evidence is devastating, and devastating evidence doesn't need a delivery. It needs accuracy. The clone army's Sith origins, the tyrannous authorization codes matched to Dooku's authenticated biometric signature, the chain of custody running from the Chancellor's proxy identity to the Kaminoan facility to the hypothalamus of every soldier currently serving in the Republic military. She names the numbers. She names the mechanism. She plays the footage. The Senate watches a clone trooper's face change for 3 seconds. The Senate watches it come back. The initial disbelief moves through the pods in a wave, not uniform, not synchronized, but traveling, spreading from the senators who understood the implications in the first minute to the ones who needed the recordings to play before their frameworks allowed them to revise. Then the recordings play. Then revision becomes unavoidable. The specific horror of realizing you have been governed by a Sith Lord for 2 decades has a particular texture. It is not the clean shock of unexpected news. It is the retroactive realization, the understanding that certain things you accepted, certain votes you cast, certain permissions you granted were calculated from the beginning to serve a purpose you never knew you were serving. Bail Organa moves through the crowd below the dais, precise, deliberate, toward the center. He locks eyes with Padmé across the chamber and gives her the single confirming nod that means the secondary evidence package has transmitted to 43 Allied senators' private terminals simultaneously. She continues speaking. Palpatine moves through the building's West Service corridor at a pace that has never once appeared in his public movements. The shuffle is gone. The grandfatherly weight and the careful measured steps, all of it gone, replaced by the locomotion of someone who has been maintaining a performance for so long that dropping it feels, for a brief fraction of a second, like relief. He mapped this route 11 years ago. Third exit west, service level 2, maintenance tunnel to the parking infrastructure, private hangar at sub-level 7. He has verified the route 4 times in the intervening years during routine building access that appeared to be nothing. He does not maintain contingencies for their own sake. He maintains them because the difference between a plan and a trap is whether you have already prepared the exit. The corridor is lit at ankle level, the same as everywhere in the building's service infrastructure. Functional, his footsteps are quiet because he is making them quiet. He reaches the first junction. The lights come on. Full building illumination, every corridor strip simultaneously, the service tunnel going from dim to bright in a single instant. Chip-free 501st clones. 6 of them at the junction, positioned with the specific geometric spacing of soldiers who were briefed to contain rather than engage, each one covering a different angle, none of them in a line that would make them easy to move through together. Rex's work. 36 hours of repositioning, quiet, outside standard channel reporting. The kind of operation that requires soldiers who are making a choice rather than following a program. Palpatine does not slow down. The first emergency bulkhead slams into the lead clone's path before anyone fires a weapon. Not the building's automated system, a manual force manipulation that seizes the hydraulic mechanism and drives it faster than its design tolerates. Metal groaning against its own frame. The lead clone goes sideways, his shoulder hitting the wall, not injured but displaced, and in the 2 seconds it takes him to recover, the corridor geometry has changed. A ceiling fixture tears free. Heavy, industrial, designed for maintenance environments, it doesn't fly like a thrown weapon, it accelerates like one. And the 2 clones in the secondary position have to move to avoid it rather than maintain their spacing. Palpatine moves through the gap. He does this without a lightsaber. He does this using the building itself, reading its structural pressure points the way a surgeon reads anatomy, finding the specific junctions where applied force converts most efficiently into obstacle. The walls don't buckle dramatically. They buckle at precise load-bearing points that redirect rather than collapse. He is not trying to demolish the building. He is trying to make it temporarily unusable as a containment structure. Rex's voice on the clone, calm. Contain. Don't chase. Hold positions. He's coming to us. The clones fall back and regroup. They do not pursue blindly, which means they are already ahead of him. Palpatine reaches the intersection before the secondary hangar tunnel and stops. The lights are on here too. And standing at the far end of the intersection, having dropped 3 floors through a maintenance shaft in the time it took the chase to develop, is Anakin. No dramatic entrance. He is simply there, the way he has been simply there every time. Standing with his arms at his sides, the same stillness that has been present since Geonosis, since the corridor with Dooku, since the office where he finished the Plagueis speech before the telling was finished. The 2 of them stand in the intersection under full building lighting. You ran, Anakin says. Everyone runs when the odds shift. Palpatine is breathing slightly harder than he would like. He controls it. That's not weakness. That's survival. Contingencies won't work. The rule of 2 means the Sith survive as long as 1. Oh, I have much more than contingencies. The warmth is entirely gone from his voice. What's there instead is something stripped down to its structural minimum, pure intelligence, pure will. The personality that has been operating beneath the grandfatherly performance since before Anakin was born. I have been surviving longer than your order has existed, my boy. He ignites. The red blade appears in the intersection and throws both their faces in crimson light, and for the first time in this building, in this confrontation, the mask is completely off. And what is underneath it is not diminished by the removal. It is worse. He does not fight toward the hangar, he fights toward the rotunda. This is not retreat, and it is not desperation. It is a calculated pivot to the one terrain where his advantages remain, where his voice has moved rooms before, where his presence has shifted votes, where 50 years of accumulated political mastery built the specific kind of authority that lightsabers and clone armies cannot fully neutralize as long as he is standing and speaking. If he can reach the central speaker's pod, if he can address the Senate directly, if he can frame this before the framing is complete, the rotunda doors are ahead of him. The clones at the entrance are moving to intercept. He drives a force pushed through the space between them, not to harm, to scatter, to create the 3 seconds he needs to reach the door. He reaches the door. He enters the rotunda. Every screen in the chamber is already showing the recording. His voice, his own voice, finishing the Plagueis speech in a room that was supposed to be private, carrying through the speaker system at full rotunda volume. Then Dooku's testimony on the adjacent screens. Then the chip demonstration footage, the clone trooper's face changing and coming back. Palpatine stands in the center of the Senate floor. The pods are everywhere. 10,000 beings looking down at him, some in horror, some in the suspended, specific stillness of people who haven't yet decided what to believe and are watching him for the signal that will tell them. The chip-free 501st forms a ring behind him. Rex at their head, not speaking, positioned with the professional patience of someone who has been here for a while and is not surprised to see the objective arrive. Anakin enters through the corridor entrance. Palpatine stands in the center of the Senate floor with his lightsaber still ignited in his hand, surrounded by the evidence of everything he spent 50 years building, and he looks across the rotunda at the 19-year-old who dismantled it. He looks for a long moment. And then, he smiles. Not the warm smile, not the political smile. Something underneath both of them, the genuine, unperformed expression of a man who has spent his entire life surrounded by people he was managing, and has, for the first time in longer than he can calculate, encountered something he was not managing, something that managed him instead. Well, his voice carries clearly in the rotunda's acoustic architecture. Unhurried, almost amused, in the way that something precise finds a well-made thing amusing even when it has been used against you. Shall we finish it then? Rex orders the evacuation in the same voice he uses for everything. Precise, carrying, built for compliance without requiring it. The Senate pods begin moving to their docking positions along the rotunda's outer wall. Thousands of beings filtering toward the exits in the organized urgency of people who understand they are being given a gift and intend to use it. Some of them look back. Padmé doesn't move. Anakin turns to her. She reads his face before he speaks. I need you to go. I watched you face 3 execution beasts without a lightsaber. She holds his eyes. I'm staying. This is different. I know. A beat. I'm staying anyway. He looks at her for a long moment. In her face he can see everything he was given back, every version of her, the senator at 24, the woman who died 3 years from this moment in another life, and the person standing in front of him now, who chose without hesitation to build something honest instead of something hidden. He looks at all of it. Stay behind Rex. His voice is quieter than the evacuation noise around them. Promise me. Promise. He turns toward the center of the floor. Palpatine's lightsaber is already ignited. He stands at the rotunda's center, with the red blade held in the low Juyo guard, relaxed, deceptively open, a form that has been refined across decades into something that functions less like a combat stance and more like a gravitational field. It does not invite attack. It attracts it, absorbs it, and returns it amplified by everything the opponent brought. Against a normal combatant it creates a spiraling condition. The harder they push, the more it feeds. Anakin ignites his blade and opens with Ceresu, Obi-Wan's form. Defense, patience, the closed geometry of a guard that offers no openings and requires nothing from its user except stillness. Not Anakin's form. Not what anyone in this room, not what anyone who knew Anakin Skywalker would expect to see. Palpatine adjusts. His footwork shifts, reading for the gemso aggression that should be here, for the emotional availability that his form is designed to exploit. It isn't here. He presses. 2 exchanges, probing, looking for the specific crack in the defense where the young man's impatience lives. Seresu is a young person's nightmare. It requires more discipline than aggression, more will than power, and young people who are capable of aggression almost never choose the patient form in a real fight. Anakin does not accelerate. He absorbs. He closes. He waits. "You're not fighting," Palpatine says, the voice of someone who is also mapping, reading this, revising his assessment in real time. "You're studying. I studied you for 20 years. The Senate pods begin moving. Not toward the exits, inward, accelerating, the entire array of repulsor lift platforms torn from their dock connections by a force manipulation that reaches across the full width of the rotunda simultaneously. Dozens of them. Converging, Palpatine drives them at Anakin the way you drive a wave at something you want to remove from the shore. Anakin redirects them. Not back at Palpatine. Too direct, too expected. Into the floor ahead of Palpatine's position, creating a debris field from the impact, a landscape of wreckage that the footwork of Juyo cannot navigate without committing to specific angles. The angles Anakin has been engineering for since the first exchange. He transitions to Gemso. The power strokes come in rhythm. Heavy, deliberate, the form counter built specifically to break the economy of Juyo by forcing expenditure on every defense rather than allowing the controlled absorption that the form depends on. Each stroke asks Palpatine to spend something. He spends it. He has it to spend. 50 years of dark-side mastery is not a small reserve. But the emotional vortex the form creates requires a reactive opponent. It requires someone whose feelings are available to be amplified. Anakin's are not available. He is completely still inside. Not suppressed. Still. The grief is there, acknowledged, filed. The love is there. Present, grounded, the anger he carries. And he does carry it. He has earned every gram of it is there too, exactly where he put it. Not running, not feeding the fight. Palpatine is fighting a man who already did his grieving. "You're not angry." He says it the way he has said everything this session, probing, assessing, looking for the entry point. "Why aren't you angry? Everything I took from you, your mother, your wife, your children, your body, your years, I was angry for 20 years. Anakin parries a thrust and redirects it in one motion. "I'm done." Both hands. The lightning arrives at full output, not the measured deployment he used on Dooku as a secondary measure, but the complete reserve. Both hands. Everything available. The maximum expression of 50 years of dark side saturation channeled into a single maelstrom. Anakin reaches through the Force and seizes the lightning's path, not his body, not his hands, but the channel itself. The line, the energy is traveling through space between Palpatine's outstretched fingers and the space where Anakin stands. He bends the path, forces it downward, redirecting the discharge into the rotunda floor in spreading arcs that blacken the stone 20 meters in every direction. The overspill costs him. The grounding current runs up through his boots and locks his legs for 4 seconds, his muscles rigid against the channeled load, teeth pressed together. But he holds the line through the Force and routes the current into the earth until Palpatine's output exhausts itself. The lightning stops. His legs are still under him. "That's what you have," Anakin says. His voice carries the slight unsteadiness of someone who just grounded a current through their body and is not pretending otherwise. After 5 decades of the dark side. That's all of it. The form dissolves. What replaces it has no name and no elegance. It is simply Palpatine operating at the level of pure survival, every technique reduced to its most lethal minimum, nothing held in reserve, no economy maintained. This is more dangerous than the form. This is the thing underneath all the forms, the violence that predates the refinement. Moving without pattern, because pattern can be anticipated, and this cannot. For 30 seconds it is genuinely dangerous. A diagonal cut catches Anakin's left forearm, not deep, not disabling, but real. The first actual wound of the entire engagement. The blood is warm and immediate, and he does not register it. He adjusts his grip and continues. He watches for the feint. He knows the feint. In another life it broke Mace Windu's defense. The apparent faltering, the suggestion of exhaustion, the guard dropping in a way that reads as an opening and is actually the setup for an explosive overhead attack that commits the opponent forward into a killing stroke. Mace never saw it coming. Anakin watched it happen. He carried the specific geometry of it for 23 years. Palpatine's guard drops. Anakin does not step back to create the counterattack angle. He steps forward, inside the attack, closes the distance completely inside the reach of the blade, and catches Palpatine's extended arm with both hands. Force grip, not the long-range telekinesis, but direct, physical, absolute contact. Palpatine cannot extend, cannot pivot, cannot generate the momentum the attack requires. The red lightsaber is 6 inches from Anakin's face and going nowhere. They are face to face. The Senate Rotunda is absolutely still. "I'm not going to do what you're hoping for," Anakin says. Palpatine's voice comes out strained against the grip. "You'll kill me either way. I'd rather it be in anger. I know. But you don't get to define how this ends." A long beat, both of them breathing. The debris of the duel spread across the rotunda floor around them. The screens still running the evidence on loop. "You spent 50 years deciding other people's deaths," Anakin says. When they died, whether they had time to understand why, whether they got to choose anything about the last moments of their lives. He holds the grip, holds the eye contact. "I'm not going to be the instrument of your design, not even at the end." He lets himself feel it. The anger, he was right to name it. 23 years of it, clean and specific and earned. The anger at what was done to him and what he was made to do in return. The years in the suit, and the years in the dark, and the specific cold weight of every choice that led from a boy on Tatooine to a monster on the Death Star. He lets it exist. He does not perform it, and he does not deny it. The grief, the version of himself that served this man. The version of Padmé that died. The children grown up in shadow. The Jedi dead in their temples. All of it present, all of it real, all of it earned through living. He holds both. He breathes. He lets them go. Not forgiveness. Not peace as an absence of feeling. Peace as a choice made with full knowledge of what is being released. And why. For the Republic, he says. It is almost inaudible. A whisper into a chamber designed for speeches. The smallest sound this room has ever carried. He releases the grip. In the instant before Palpatine can respond, with the full, clean, unencumbered force of a man who has made his peace with this moment and carries no hesitation anywhere in his body, it is over. The rotunda is silent. Anakin stands alone in the center of the chamber. The galaxy's shadow is at his feet. He does not look at it. He looks up, at the ceiling, at the enormous curved architecture of a building that was built for democracy and was being converted, one emergency session at a time, into something else. Not anymore. He breathes. And again. His lungs. The air. The quiet. No mechanical rhythm. No suit sealing him away from the simple fact of being alive. Just his chest and the air going in and coming back out, the most ordinary thing in the galaxy, which he has not had access to without grief in it for 23 years. He breathes. Padmé is behind Rex, exactly where she promised. She is watching him with an expression he cannot fully read from here, and does not need to. Obi-Wan appears at the corridor entrance. He takes in the scene. His face moves through several things and settles into something that has no word. He crosses the floor and stands beside Anakin and puts a hand on his shoulder. Neither of them says anything. The breathing continues. That is enough. The days immediately after are chaos with a structure underneath it. Senate investigation committees convene within 48 hours. Emergency sessions run through the night on consecutive evenings. The Separatist Council, deprived of the Sith backing that was the engine of their entire financial and political case for secession, enters emergency negotiations within 72 hours of the Rotunda footage reaching the public channels. Several member worlds withdraw from the Confederacy before the week is out, not because they were forced to, but because the argument for leaving dissolved when the man who built it was exposed as the argument's author on both sides. Padmé's name is on every newsfeed. She handles this with the same precision she handles everything. Present where it serves, absent where it doesn't. always 3 steps ahead of what the story is being made into. Anakin stays out of the public eye entirely. He is in the medical bay for the first day, getting the forearm wound properly treated and eating his first real meal in 3 days. He sits with the stillness of a man who spent 45 years of memory waiting for a specific moment that is now past. And the moment has passed. And the world is still here, and he is still here, and neither of those things feels entirely real yet. I thought it would feel different. Larger, I thought the weight would lift. It didn't. The weight is still there. It's just not crushing anymore. He sits with that for a while. Then he finishes the meal. The council chamber. 1 week later, he places his lightsaber on the floor in front of Yoda's chair. Not thrown, set down. Deliberately, the way you set something down when you want the gesture to be understood rather than felt. I'm not resigning from the Force, he says. I'm resigning from a hierarchy I was never meant to fit. Yoda looks at the lightsaber for a long moment. Then he reaches forward and picks it up and holds it out. Yours, this is. His voice carries something that has not been in it in recent memory. The specific quality of an old being acknowledging an old mistake without ornamentation. Many kinds of Jedi, an order needs. Master you are. Even if not by our structure. Anakin takes it back. I'll work with you, he says, as a partner where it serves the galaxy, not as a soldier reporting to a council. Mace Windu looks at him from his chair with the expression he has worn in most of their interactions, the expression of a man who is perpetually deciding whether Anakin Skywalker is a problem to be managed or a fact to be accepted. You know what you're asking us to accept. I'm asking you to accept that I'm not a Jedi. He holds Mace's eyes. I'm the chosen one. They're different things. The chamber sits with it. Yoda taps his cane once. Different things, yes. A pause. A distinction we failed to understand. Begin to understand it, we shall. 2 weeks after that. Padmé's apartment. The ceremony is small by design. Obi-Wan stands to Anakin's left. Bail Organa stands near the window with the city behind him, present as witness and as something approaching a political guarantee. His presence signals to anyone who needs to know that this marriage begins in the open, in the light, with the full weight of his endorsement. Captain Rex stands at the back in civilian clothes, at Anakin's specific request, because he was the first person who trusted the claim before he had any reason to. No secrecy. No hiding. No management of how this will look. Padmé's vows are hers, and they are exact. I've heard what your fear made you do. Her voice is even, the way it is even when she is saying something she has decided to say completely. I know the weight you carry. And I choose you anyway, the man who came back. The man who decided to be different. His are shorter. I spent my whole life afraid of losing you. It made me wrong about everything. He looks at her. Just at her. I'm not afraid anymore. I just love you. That's all there is. From the back of the room, barely audible, I don't cry. For the record. Rex, eyes forward expression, entirely professional. Obi-Wan, beside him, equally forward, equally professional. Of course not. Neither do I. 3 months later, the shape of things has settled into something new. The Separatist crisis resolves through negotiation in stages, deprived of their Sith financial architecture. The economic logic of secession collapses faster than anyone anticipated. Padmé's draft legislation for clone civil standing moves through committee with Bail Organa's sponsorship and Rex's quiet, devastating testimony before the relevant subcommittee. The Jedi Order begins the long and visibly uncomfortable process of institutional self-examination that Anakin required from the Council and that Yoda is conducting with the specific thoroughness of someone who understands that the alternative is making the same mistake again. Anakin's role in the new arrangement has no official title. The Council consults him on Force-related threats, on military strategy, on the specific category of things that require someone who has already seen the worst version of a situation and knows what it looks like from the inside. He answers to his own conscience and coordinates with the Council when their interests align, which is more often than Mace Windu would prefer and less often than Yoda would like. Obi-Wan, in a corridor outside the Council chamber, to Yoda, is he going to be a problem? Yoda, already walking away, already a problem he is. The right kind. Their apartment. Deep night. The city below. She finds him at the window the way she has found him at the window 3 times this week. Standing with his hands loose at his sides, not in meditation, not in the tactical processing that she has learned to recognize by the specific quality of his stillness. This is different. This is something older. Vader again? Something like that. She stands beside him. The city lights run in every direction below, thousands of levels of civilization going about the business of being alive. What does it feel like? When it comes? He considers how to say it accurately. Like an echo. I know the choice that made it doesn't exist anymore. But I can still feel the weight of the suit. Still hear the breathing. A pause. Like a phantom limb. Something that was there for so long that the absence has the same shape as the presence. Is it getting better? He looks at her. Yes, he says. Slowly, yes. She takes his hand. They stand at the window together in the way they have been standing at windows together since Geonosis. 2 people who survived the same story from different directions and chose to build something honest from it. She is 3 months pregnant. Not yet showing. Neither of them says it tonight. They are just standing here, alive, in an apartment in a city on a planet, in a galaxy that does not know what it was almost, and the future is entirely unwritten, and that is the point. I have been a slave, a warrior, a hero, a monster, and a ghost. I burned half my life and drowned the rest in service to a fear I couldn't name, and a man who named it for me. I wore the dark side the way a soldier wears a scar, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't find the door out. I found it. The galaxy doesn't know what it was almost. It knows what it is, alive. The war that didn't happen. The children who'll never be orphans. The clones who'll keep their minds. The Jedi who'll live another generation. I will carry the memory of the man I was. Not as punishment, as knowledge. The Vader in me isn't gone, he is architecture. He is every tactical calculation I will ever make, every threat I will sense before it arrives, every moment I spend one step ahead of the dark because I have already walked its furthest room. Luke once told me I was worth saving. I told him it was too late. He was right. It was just early enough. I am Anakin Skywalker. I am the chosen one. The Force brought me back because the Force is, in its essence, the same thing love is, the belief that something can be different, that a life freely given can change the course of everything. I already gave mine once. This time I intend to keep it. The sound of Padmé breathing beside him. Silence. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.